Hello, everybody. Welcome into Pro Football Plus. I am Ben Parker, Shane Ratliff on the board, Austin Freed on the board. I am so excited about tonight's episode. I may be a lousy host, all right? We may just talk a lot, and I may not set the table too much. So I apologize for that straight up. We've got NFL free agents in the secondary. Me, Austin, and Shane are going to play a little bit of a grab game tonight, kind of like mock drafts do. We're kind of do it with free agency. It'll be sloppy. It's okay. We want to give you a feel for what's there and what might happen in kind of a real life situation. And then we're going to look at the Vikings again. And we're going to do a Vikings mock draft. And Austin, who is a major Vikings guy, is going to be the GM with all the power tonight. Me and Shane will make our recommendations. But ultimately, Austin will decide what is going to happen with this team on this board tonight. So thank you all for being here. Shane and Austin, it's good to have you. I'm going to get a weather report from each of you tonight while I'm cooking up the boards here. All right, Shane, you first. Listen, last week we had 70 degrees here, Shane. So what's it like up there where you are?
Currently, this morning it was negative 17.
Sorry, I asked. Austin, where I assume you're somewhere in the middle, right?
We're gonna be getting snow tomorrow, so that's our
Oh,
big update. Is
nice.
it'll be a work from home day because even if a nice 2 inches, which we're supposed to get 3 or so, uh, roads shut down pretty much entirely. So if you have the capability
Right.
of working from home, that's what most of Raleigh will be doing tomorrow.
All right. Enjoy the snow, Austin. Please hit somebody with a snowball for me. I we we got our 3 year snow a few weeks ago, so in 3 years we'll get another year. Let's get into it. I am so excited. So let me explain the board to everybody in the audience, and then we'll jump into it. Right here, I've got basically the top 15, 16, whatever guys in the secondary that are projected to be available in free agency. We know they won't all make it. Some teams will re-sign these guys. Other guys may be available. Other guys are maybe should be on the list and aren't. This is kind of a pretty good list of what you might be looking at on the top end of the secondary. Okay, over here to this side, I've got all the top 15 teams in the NFL with cap space. I haven't changed it from last week, so it's changed at all since last week. It won't be major, but you might see differences. Don't get too caught up in the numbers here. Just know, hey, these teams up at the top, they got a lot of cap space. These teams right here, they have some flex, but not as much to be a power player. Right here, these ages, this is the projected ages at the start of next season, not right now. So if you're looking at that, you're like, hey, that doesn't look right. It's not. This is what happens come September, early September. This is about the age they will be. And some of that's even a little bit fuzzy because of, hey, guys are 11 months apart in age and they're listed at the same. Normal CB guys right here. I know they don't all play just straight up wide CB, but this is the pocket we put them in. Got a couple of slot guys here with Hilton and Hobbs. And then these are the safeties. And listen, safety can be a catch all these days, right? You got guys playing in the box, slot, free safety, strong safety, wide safety. I mean, it's a mix, but these it's a pretty good group of safeties here. Let's get into it. First thing we're gonna do, and I'm gonna let Austin actually kick this off. We're gonna take one guy straight off the board. We're gonna pretend that they re-sign with their current team, and they won't be available in free agency at all. So, Austin, go ahead and take a guy off the board for us.
We're gonna re-sign Asante Samuel to the Chargers.
All right. I like it. Asante Samuel is no longer available. I'm just going to go ahead and turn him in gray here, and we'll flip it over to Shane. Shane, take a guy off the board here.
Great pick by Austin. That was my number one as well. I also think that Rasul Douglas is also going to be one that signed. Buffalo went through last year where they basically let their entire defensive backfield go. I think that they're not going to be able to make those moves this year, so I think they hold on to him for another year.
All right, fair enough. And I'm going to go ahead and take Javon Holland off the board. I haven't looked at the Dolphins cap money deep to know if they can actually do this or not without hurting themselves. But I like him there in Miami, so I'm taking Javon Holland off the board. Okay, so Rasul Douglas, Asante Samuel, Javon Holland. We re-signed all three of them with their teams. Maybe even more of these guys will than just this, but those three guys are no longer available tonight. What we're now going to do as we work our way through this list, Austin's going to start. He's going to sign somebody to a brand new team. One of these teams right here is going to go over and grab one of these secondary guys. We're not too worried about scheme fit tonight, okay? Because we don't exactly know who all is going to be available. It's our turn, okay? Not overly worried about scheme fit. What we are worried about giving you, the audience, a feel for is which of these teams with money want a guy in the secondary, and which one of these guys in the secondary is quickest to go off because they are desirable no matter what position they play. Austin, let's take it. Let's find a guy here, man.
Well, I'm going to go with a guy who I'm pretty familiar with, and Byron Murphy, and unfortunately, got to say goodbye to him. I'm hoping we can replace him in the draft, but that's later down the show. Um, I'm going to be signing him to the 49ers. They're going to have to replace some depth, and there goes Byron to the Niners.
All right, Byron Murphy off the board. Now, I am curious, Austin. I'll keep with you for just a second because you could have projected him with the Vikings and chose not to. What's the thinking there as I kind of mark off Byron Murphy to the 49ers?
I think it's just more realism than anything.
Okay.
I don't feel super confident.
All right, fair enough. Totally fair enough. Shane, we're coming to you, man. Your Patriots just happen to have a little bit of spending money over here, but maybe they're not interested in one of these guys, so maybe you're using a different team. Totally up to you. Where are we going? Who are we signing here?
Well, I thought on both ends, and this is a guy I think that the Patriots would go at, but I'm not sure if they're looking on this one. But I actually think it's going to be a 1-for-1 off of this. I'm going to go with the Commanders, and I think that they make a reach and go to sign Justin Reed away from the Chiefs. You see Jeremy Chin down there. They kind of played him because they had to. I think Justin Reed gives them a more well-rounded safety. He can even kick when you need him to with the new kickoff rules and things like that. But I think he fits a Commander's field. I also think the Patriots would love to have him, but I don't know if that's where they're going to spend their money up front this year.
All right. I like it. I was actually, Shane, because I was going to use the Commanders to sign a different guy, but no matter what, and this isn't a big secret, but the Commanders could use help in the secondary, whether they look to the draft for that or whether the free agency or both. They could do both. But the Commanders, one of the things that they could use is help in the secondary. I was actually going to go after DJ Reed with the Commanders, but I don't think I'll do that now. We'll pretend that they spend the money somewhere else. All right, so I'm actually going to go DJ Reed here. He's still available. I am curious to see how Reed does when he's not here for the Jets with a very good defense. We'll see, but I still like DJ Reed. So I'm actually going to put Reed over here. I'm tempted by a couple different things here. I'm going to put Reed on the Raiders. Okay, so the Raiders could use secondary help. I'm going to put Reed there on the Raiders. They've got the cap space to do it. Got plenty here. You're looking at about 95. And again, it depends on what website, what source you're looking at as to how much cap space they actually have. But they've got the cap space. So first three guys off the board here. Shane, I want to ask you, we've taken off Justin Reed, Byron Murphy, and DJ Reed. Is there a guy here that you're surprised that the three of us haven't signed yet?
Not really. I mean, because like Austin said, in a perfect world, you'd hope that Byron Murphy would go right back to the Vikings, but he's got a high price tag, so then you got to match around. So I thought he would be off the board. DJ Reed, like you said, he's one where I'd be interested to see him with a different team. I think Jets, both offensively and defensively, it's hard for you to get anything out of what they've done for the last 2 years with the turnover they've had, the way that the games have been played. So I think it's tough to figure out who they are. The one other than that, we had talked about this last week when Austin was breaking down, the Vikings. Cam Bynum, I think, is one that some people who haven't watched him a lot are going to overpay for. And I think the Vikings aren't going to feel bad about that. But in the conversations that all three of us have had before, I'm not surprised that he's still on our board and not signed with somebody.
Yeah, I agree. Austin, I want to ask you about Cam Bynum as well, because when I spent this past week looking at what Cam Bynum might make on the free agency market, it was actually more than my projections here. I mean, it's higher than that, So I assume your feelings will not be hurt to see him sign somewhere else. Do you think he'll actually get what we're hearing, or do you think it's going to come down lower than that?
Well, he had, what was it, 8 interceptions this year? He's going to get
Yeah.
paid. And actually, that's exactly where I'm going, would be going
Okay.
next, I think, on this board.
Yeah. Go ahead. Take it away, man.
I think he signs a big contract, and I think he goes to Eagles, who need some big time help in their secondary.
And Austin, I'm sorry, my computer glitched there, so I heard everything you had said except for the team name that he went to.
Cincinnati, the Bengals.
All right, Bengals for. See if I can find it here. Bengals for Cam Bynum. I would love to see them sign somebody, whether or not it's Bynum, be up for discussion. But I would love to see the Bengals get some kind of secondary help here as well. Okay, so Cam Bynum gets his paycheck. I do agree. I think he's going to get it somewhere, and we'll see who decides that they need that bad enough. Shane, let's go back to you, man. Let's sign a second player here for you.
I think Dante Jackson is going to get more than a little bit more than what we have projected on there. And I know you already picked the Raiders for DJ Reed, but I would not be surprised if we see Dante Jackson in that same run.
They got the money. All
Yeah,
right, they got almost 100 mil to play with, depending on what they want to do with it. So no problem
and
here.
I and
All
I
right, so
think
Don.
Pete Carroll's going to want to get stronger with defensive backs. That's a big part of his defensive system is to have some D that can stand up. It may not be the fastest, but they're going to hit, and I think that's a move they make.
All right, and I'm going to go ahead and double dip on a team that I had here earlier. They're still actually. I'm looking through here. I see one guy, two guys. I've still got 4 or 5 guys I'm okay with handing some money to. If I'm a team that needs help in the secondary, I may have to overpay a little bit to do it, but if I need it, I need it. So I'm okay here. But I am going to grab the Commanders here. I'm going to go back to them with another player. Jeez, I think I'm gonna pick up Trayvon Merrick. Sorry, I keep calling him Merrick out of the Raiders here. So I'm gonna turn that into a Commanders pick as well. Uh, Merrick is not dominant, but does a lot of different stuff. Very flexible, decent in the run game. But boy, he can cover all over the place. Very flexible, kind of a safety again there. So I'm going to pull Merrick for the Commanders. I would like to see the Commanders do something, whether it's draft free agency or 2 free agents or 2 draft picks. I would love to see them do something twice in the secondary. I think they've got with the cap space and the draft picks to pull that off. Okay, so just a quick recap here. Murphy to the 49ers on our board, Reed to the Raiders on our board, Jackson to the Raiders on our board, Justin Reed to the Commanders for us, Trevon Merrick to the Commanders for us, and Cam Bynum to the Bengals for us. Austin, I'll come back to you. We're not going to make any more picks here, but what's one player that's still here that you still really like or is surprised it's still here?
I think Mike Hilton still gets the job
Okay.
done in the slot. He's a great nickel, and I think he's going to sign somewhere. I think if the Vikings don't re-sign Byron Murphy, I think there's a high likelihood that Mike Hilton actually ends up a Viking.
I would love it because I still like Hilton too. I've always liked Hilton. I don't, I'm not necessarily saying he's like elite dominant, but I really like that you can plug him in here, do a lot of stuff there in the slot with him. I really, really like Mike Hilton, even though he is now 31 years old. Shane, out of the guys that still aren't signed, who's a guy you still like, would recommend teams to kind of give some money to?
Well, you just mentioned the age thing, Ben, and I think Ward is the other one that I can see where if teams think about past performance and what they sometime have seen from him from the 49ers, where he could get a deal where he gets some money that I think a team 2 years down the road regrets paying him that much. But um, if you put him in the right setup where you're not asking him to cover a burner every time, if you're going to lock him down and give him a quarter of the field, I think he could help a team. I also wouldn't be surprised. They are my team, but I wouldn't be surprised if Vrabel and the Patriots made a run at him because they'll play the quarters and be able to play some coverage behind him to protect him a little bit. And I
Okay.
think when they did that in San Francisco with a decent pass rush, he can show up. But he's definitely, even in the beginning, I don't know if he was your number one quarter on a team. And I think with the age, it's passed by him as well.
I'm gonna come back to you for final thoughts on the whole board, whatever you want to talk about. One thing I do like about this group, because we've covered now several different groups in free agency, a couple of different routes. I like the age thing here. There's several guys here who, while they're not dominant, boy, I've got Murphy at 27. I've got Asante Samuel at 25. I've got Paulson Adebo at 26. I've got Nate Hobbs at 26. Javon Holland at 25. Merrick 26. Hufanga 26. Bynum 27. Chin 27. Depending on the money and what you need, there are young guys here available that you could feel fairly happy giving a 3 or 4 year deal to and expect them to be whatever they are for the duration of that contract. So I do like that here on this board. Austin, back to you. Final thoughts here on the free agent board.
Yeah, overall, I really like this free agent class
Okay.
at DB. I think it's one of the stronger DB classes we've seen from top to bottom. Maybe not the biggest high end talent besides maybe Javon Holland,
Right.
who I think really is a true game changer when he's playing at his best level. But I mean, just really solid depth. I mean, all these guys are going to get signed, and
Mm-hmm.
there's even farther names that we never mentioned that are also going to be getting signed
Yep.
this offseason
Yep.
and be
Absolutely.
making impacts on a team next year.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. I agree with everything you just put out there, Austin, because I do like this group much more than a couple of the other groups that we looked at so far. This one seems to have more of a desirable free agent class feel to it than what we've seen in some of the other groups. Shane, final thoughts here on this board.
I think Austin hit it out of the park on his comment on that. You don't necessarily have like a rocket scream talent other than Holland, but your probably base lowest level is better than it's been in years past. I also think with the way that the league has changed defensively, guys that used to age out as your 1-2 corner are now viable to still stay in there because you can bring in a younger guy in the slot and have him run around and not necessarily have the same game plan and know the defense as well, but know that you can match him up. Philadelphia's proven that you can put a young, talented kid in, let them run around, and we'll play a more
Yeah.
understanding defense behind them. And I think that that's the way the league is going to shift again. And so some of these guys are going to get an opportunity to play a little bit longer and a little bit higher profile than what they would have even in years past.
Totally agree, and great point there. My final thing on this board will be the projected cap numbers here. And again, these are projections. These guys could go significantly higher. They could go lower. It depends on what teams want them and who gets who first. But what I do like here, in addition to the age, is these are not super expensive cap numbers. If you have any kind of cap space at all, you can afford one of these guys. All right. Now, maybe the two of the top end guys start to kick over 23, 24 mil. But boy, if you're just looking to improve the team, these are not expensive cap numbers compared to what you'll pay for a high end wide receiver, high end edge, high end quarterback. You can upgrade your roster here and not kill your cap doing it. I really like that as well, no matter where the numbers land here. So, all right, excellent job on this board. Everybody in the audience, hope you got a good feel for at least who's got money and which of those teams might be quickest to jump on a guy and which one of these guys might be gone the earliest. Okay, so really appreciate both y'all doing that. Let's move on here. The Minnesota Vikings. All right, this is Austin's team. Just kind of setting it up here for the mock draft here. This is the same board that we had last week, so no new material here. Although we're about to change some of that. Okay, so this is the points allowed per game last year. This is the rankings that they had on defense last year. Biggest cap hits for next year on the Vikings, and then these are the draft picks that they've got. What we're going to do here is change these grades just a little bit. We're not going to change everything tonight. We're just going to start tinkering, adding a little bit of nuance, give everybody a little bit better feel for where these guys should rank, start to separate them out a little bit more. I don't have any A's here. A grade would be Hall of Fame level, All Pro level, that kind of a thing. Your B grades are your guys who are more consistently getting Pro Bowl attention, even if they're not necessarily in the Pro Bowl. They would viably be there. C-level guys, they're starting a bunch. I mean, they're getting 800, 1,000 snaps, whether they should or not. That's what they're getting. So they're C-level guys. D-level guys, maybe they should be getting more snaps than they are, but a D-level guy is a guy who's basically a rotation guy of some sort contributing in that way. So, Shane, I'll let you start this here tonight. Let you pick a guy We're not going to change the whole grade, but you can go plus or minus on any of these guys. We'll start to tilt these grades a little bit. Shane?
So I to carry off, and we're going full Vikings for the next couple of weeks, in this. So um Austin and I talked about it last week. I think the key thing when you're talking about grading is you need to have an overall system, but then when you're looking for team specifics, there are certain elements to where that would raise that player's grade. One of the people,
Yeah.
actually, the two of the main safeties in this, I think, are grades that probably Austin and I may change. I'll go with Harrison Smith on this. I'll put him as a C plus because what I ask him to do is tackle the ball carrier, and he does that above what your average safety does. So I would give him that. Now, are there weaknesses to his game? Certainly, and that's what keeps him in that C category. He's lost a
Mm-hmm.
step. His coverage skills are getting downgraded. But for what we ask him to do, I'm going to raise him up because there's no other safety out there right now that if I had to put them in the box, I'd put above him for what we're asking him to do. So I'd give
All
him the
right.
raise up on that as a plus C.
Yeah, fascinating. I'm not surprised at the grade, but that is fascinating that you said, hey, there's no other safety out there who I would put in his place to do what specifically I am asking him to do. That's really good intel there. All right, Austin, go ahead and give us one guy here that you want to go ahead and bump up or slide down a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna go last year's first round pick, Dallas Turner. He's gonna go bump up to a D plus. I think D's a little disrespectful. Obviously, that wasn't asked to do too much, so it is still kind of projecting him forward. But I think what we saw was enough to give him a healthy projection moving forward.
No, I agree. And listen, here in 2, 3, 4 weeks, whenever we can circle back around to it, because we have so much to cover, we may actually do this again and get, he might be a C minus where we're starting to really project here. Hey, this is what we think he can and should be. We may double grade these guys here in a couple of weeks. We're just adjusting it here tonight, moving guys in the right direction. I'm going to go to Josh Metellus here. I'm going to turn him into a C plus. Um, Austin talked about his flexibility last week. All right, just the flexibility alone, I love it. His ability to stop the run, I love it. His ability to drop back into coverage, I especially like it when he's covering tight ends the best. I like his work there. But boy, this is a guy who I think isn't just a solid starter. Actually, gives you an advantage here. So I like Metellus here. I'm gonna give him a C plus, and we may revisit that grade again here in a couple of weeks. Shane, let's go ahead and do one more player for each of us before we get into tonight's mock draft, which is actually the dessert of the evening. This is the part I can't wait to get to. Well, let's go ahead and change one more grade here on one of these Vikings players. Shane?
So for me, and this was an easy pick because it might be out of the board, the only one where I thought that maybe he got a lower grade than what I would have really put him at, and that's Andrew Van Ginkel. Um, I think for what he does, he is way under respected. I think this last year brought his name back up, but he did this when he was with the Dolphins. Like his ability to get after the quarterback, which is what they ask him to do. It's not always pretty. He doesn't have, the stats have come along. He has the stats to garner some attention, but they don't always give him credit. A lot of times they talk about, the system around him, but I thought especially this year when a lot of people were giving credit to how the offense jumped out, there are some huge sacks and turnovers caused directly from his pressure, either fumble recoveries or him just pressuring the quarterback that really turned the games around for the Vikings in the early part of that year. And so he would be the one I'd bump up, and I'd feel real comfortable with him sitting at a B plus.
All right, awesome. It is done, and we may revisit that again in a week or two. Shane, I'm going to skip my picks here tonight because you guys are putting out good stuff. Shane, I'm going to come back to you in a second, get one more pick from you. Austin, I want two more picks from you, but Austin, go ahead and give me your next pick right now, who you would change here. And if you don't want to change anybody, that's fine. But we're going to keep moving
Oh,
guys until we.
yeah, this one's pretty easy. Stephon Gilmore, I'm sorry. I got to bump you down, brother. It was not a good season for you. You've lost a step at this point.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I would agree. Based on what I've seen, and again, I didn't watch every Viking snap. Based on what I've seen, I would agree as well. Shane, without double changing anybody tonight, because we may do that in a few weeks here. Anybody else you want to change to a plus or minus here?
The only one, and I hate to do it because I like what he does, but would be Harrison Phillips, I think, is starting to take a pounding after the years of what he's done for the Bills and for the Vikings. Um, I still think he's a great tool for you as a defensive tackle, but as you get up there and the years of taking the abuse, playing that position, uh, I think he would even tell you, and he's a pretty straightforward guy, that he's taken a step back. Hopefully this year he'll be powered up a little bit more, and they can ask some more of some other people, but I would drop him down just to that C minus. And like I said, I don't think it's where his game dropped off a cliff, but you can see there's a decline coming. So
All right, fair enough. And Austin, you have one more guy without double changing anybody tonight that you want a plus or minus here.
I do. I think Ivan Pace is a really good player. I'm going to bump him up to a C
Okay.
plus. He is a really solid linebacker, can stop the run. Not too great in pass defense, but that's not what he's asked to do, and he does it well.
All right, fair enough. And Shane, I do want to go back to the grading system here for just a second. You said a pretty large part of what you're grading on tonight is what they actually do for the Vikings, correct?
yeah, like I said, I think you do a great job, Ben, with coming up. When I think about this, I always grade holistically. So it's like, okay, this is
Right.
what I look for this position. And then when we get into the time where we're looking draft or we're talking specifically, then I go, okay, out of what I'm asking of this player, what do I get? So if you like
Okay.
when the Patriots offense was going and you were looking for a wide receiver, I wouldn't say that other than Randy Moss, they ever had a number one. But
I
for
don't think
what
they
you were
did.
asking for, Julian Edelman did a great job as a slot. He performed number wise
Right.
as a number one. So, like, you have to take into consideration how each team wants their player to go. It's like how Nick Saban had a exact height, weight, speed description for each position, and
Mm-hmm.
then that was his base, and then he could decide on other characteristics. So that's how I look at it. So especially with somebody like Harrison Smith, the example I gave on this one, for what I ask him to do, he does exactly what I want. And sometimes that's more important to me than you being able to run, still a 4-3. If
Right.
you know what I'm asking of you and I guarantee that you're going to make the play when I need you to, I can game plan around your other weaknesses. I can find somebody that's going to run all over the field and
Yeah.
cover somebody and trust that they don't need to think because I'm going to let you do the thinking for them.
Yeah. No, listen, and nobody for 20 years, the 2000s, the 2010s, nobody did that better than the Patriots. All right. Exactly what you're just describing. Austin, real quick on the grading system here. Are you grading more here on what they're doing for the Vikings, what the Vikings are asking, or are you kind of backing out and saying, no, this is where they would kind of fit anywhere in the league, depending on scheme?
I try to kind of do a good mix of both as well as like projecting forward. I think at this point,
Okay.
it's you're using last year as helping you to project forward, but you're not grading based solely off last year. You're kind of projecting these guys forward.
Right.
And so I think for guys who I know are going to be Vikings this next year, I'm grading them as a Viking. But if you were to ask me to grade somebody who I think might no longer be a Viking,
Mm-hmm.
I would probably grade them in a more holistic, general area.
Beautiful. I love it. Great work on the board. Again, as we get time heading into the draft, we may revisit this and even add more nuance to it as well. Speaking of the draft, we are going to do a tiny, not a big one, a tiny mock draft tonight. But it's going to be really good. Okay. And I'm really excited about it. So give me just a second here. Um, Austin's going to be the GM. Austin, while I'm scrolling this up, man, go ahead and tell us just with the first, you can do the whole draft if you want, but I'm really more interested in the first round pick first. Okay. Go ahead and tell us as your assistants here, as your kind of field generals, if you will. Tell us, without naming specific players, what you really kind of want to get out of this first round pick, what you're really looking for.
All right, so I'm looking for a tier one guard. I have two names, and there's a
Okay.
third name who's someone who I think projects more as a tackle, but if we see him as a guard, I'd be willing to draft him at this early because I think the price like guards used to never be drafted this high. 24 is not a super high pick, but I think we're at a place right now in the NFL where a really top end guard can be drafted as high as, top 10, potentially even close to. They're like really good. So, yeah, if we can have a really solid guard fall to us at 24, I'm looking for that. Other than that, I think there's a couple corners who I'm looking at, especially ones who I can trust to play on the outside. So those are my two biggest needs, I think, that I'm looking for. And I think there's plenty of those guys that are going to be available for us at 24.
All right. Full disclosure here, Austin. I've got 7 names written down that I like. Okay. So a
Okay.
couple of them are O linemen with interior in mind. That's where I was thinking. I've got some guys in the secondary as well. I also have defensive tackle. Are you, as the GM, are you at all interested in defensive tackle recommendations, or you're like, no, not this year, not this draft?
There's one name who I'd be willing to
Okay.
get if he's available, but
Okay.
that would have to mean that there's no O line that I like and no corners that I like. I think D tackle actually has some pretty decent talent that I'm looking at in the third round. So
Okay.
I'm
All right.
hoping to hopefully maybe address that in free agency or then at the third round.
All right, fair enough. For the audience tonight, listen, this is perfect. I love this stuff. We actually get to talk about what realistically might be sitting there, and the computer's going to throw in some randomization that may or may not be accurate. Okay, take that with a grain of salt. Here in a second, I'm going to hit the draft button. We're going to find out what's actually sitting there for us tonight as the Vikings organization. Shane will make the recommendation first out of who he wants. I will then as well, and then Austin will make the final decision. We'll just do the first round pick and the third round pick. We're not going to go all the way down to the fifth round tonight. Austin, you ready to get this thing underway, man?
Let's start it.
All right. All right. We're using PFF Mock Simulator tonight. There are more than one mock simulator that I like, but this is one that I like. Okay. So, under this scenario, let me real quick to show everybody who's drafted first. Okay. Cam Ward, Hunter, Carter, Graham, Campbell, and they've got Sanders down at 6. Okay. So, just kind of a quick glimpse at the top end of the board. The last few picks before the Vikings got a selection here: Kelvin Banks, Shamar Stewart, Derek Harmon, Mikael Williams, all off the board. Shane, take it away, man. I can go anywhere you want. If you want to see something, or if you already know what you want to do here, lay it on us.
So I would say for this, Ben, let's highlight our interior offensive line because the boss has given us our marching orders on this one.
Yes,
Um,
he has.
uh, hearing from Austin in the last couple of weeks, I think this would also be a spot where if somebody came up and they were looking for somebody hot, where our GM may make a move to get us some more picks so we can make another run. But I think, as Austin had mentioned before, we have some guys that maybe are tackles that we can move around or places that have some opportunity based on what they have and based on what the talent is right now. I like Zabel, but what I would go with at this later pick is I would go with Tyler Booker from Alabama. I think he's going to drop a little bit, and I think he may, if you do your due diligence, he may be a more talented player than what some people are giving him credit for. So I'd go move internal, and he would be the selection for me.
All right. So Booker for Shane. I'm going to move around just a little bit because I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody before I make my recommendation. So those of you in the audience, kind of hang with me. I'm going to move over to defensive tackle first. Mention that. The name I'm looking for is not there, so I have no defensive tackle recommendations here for Austin for the Vikings tonight. I'm going to roll back over here to defensive back, that is basically cornerback. There's one name there that I'm probably going to recommend. Let me move over here to safety. Give everybody a quick look here. There's a couple of names there. I'm not going to recommend that. Shane already made an interior offensive line recommendation, which I like. Okay, totally happy with that. 1,000% happy if that's the direction we go. And matter of fact, Zabel or Booker, I like both guys. So whether it's Zabel moving inside or Booker, I like it. My recommendation, I'm going to move to cornerback, and it's going to be Siobhan Rebel out of East Carolina. Okay, I really like this guy. Very aggressive. I even think he has some of the earmarks of a guy that you could flex over to safety sometimes when you want to, even though he's mainly been a wide CB. He is coming off of an injury, but we haven't heard any reports that progress has been hindered in coming off of that injury. So I like Siobhan Ravel. That'll be my recommendation. Austin's the boss, though. Austin, take it away.
Could you show me those D tackles again, real quick?
Let's
I
do it,
want to
man.
see. And I think there was a name I was looking for. I didn't see him, but scroll down a little bit. Or can up? Oh, there you went. Walter Nolan, by the way, was the D tackle that I would be
Okay.
willing. I'm like, if he's there, I'm I'm considering him.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I love a lot of the options. What are you all's thoughts on Membu as a guard? Because I've seen some people say they like that his ability to go in and play guard. I've seen others because he was measured at 34-inch arms say no, he's got 34-inch arms. He's going to be a tackle.
Mhm.
I'm
What
going
are
to go
y'all's
ahead and
thoughts?
jump in there.
Yeah.
Sorry. I know Shane's got a better grip on XOs than I do, so I'll let him weigh in on that side of it. But when I watched Mimbo, I loved him as a guard, projecting him that way. I think his ability to go everywhere and do everything as a run blocker is almost like an orchestra. I think it's pure harmony. And I haven't seen anything on tape that makes me think he can't play tackle. Man, he did it at the Southeastern Conference. I will say I didn't see enough tape to make me sure that he can do pass blocking at tackle at the NFL level, and I'll just leave it at that. Okay, Shane.
Well, I think you hit on a lot of key things for that, Ben. So he played in an offense that, for an offensive lineman, asked him to do an awful lot of guard and tackle responsibilities out of his blocking. For me, I would always rather take a bigger player, move him inside, and let his athleticism at a guard spot really show you dominance than to take a chance and say, I'm not sure if he's going to play out at tackle. The In my mind, the biggest unicorn position that's not quarterback in the NFL is offensive tackle. You have guys that have sheer athleticism going against people who only have one job, and that's to get to the quarterback. Like Austin said, the key thing again is that they look and they go, okay, he's got 34-inch arms. That means we don't have to move him.
Hmm.
In my mind, you take a guy that has all the talent and all the size of a tackle and you move him inside, and then that becomes a scary situation because
Right.
now I trust that he's going to do that. And what I thought was his weakness at tackle now lets him play middle of the ground as a guard. Um, there's not a lot. There's not Joe Toonies out there that are going to go, I'm going to play guard, but the team needs me to play tackle, so I'll step out. People
Hmm.
don't do that.
Yeah.
That's He's an all-star for a reason at every position he's ever played on the offensive line. So like Austin said, if that's a go get, I like that. High level competition he's played against, I would definitely be one of the guys that I'd want to talk to him about this though,
Hmm.
because if you have a guy that thinks he's a tackle and I'm telling you I'm going to play you at guard, but I'm going to pay you, some of those guys they buy out.
Yeah.
But if I talk to him and I say, hey, look, do you want to tell people that you're a first round pick on a playoff team and that we're going to punish people? Or do you want to be a second rounder and I take somebody else that's going to be on the offense and you'll have to play against us? So I like Austin's move. I mean, the only one that I didn't really like out of there is Connolly at Oregon.
Yeah.
I think that he's getting a higher projection than where I would put him. So like I said, I think you're reaching with Booker, but you have athleticism, and I can play with that. With Zabel, I think you're going to get a physical guy. Those guys from North Dakota State are going to attack. He's going to be a close to home. Minnesota people are going to love that you have a guy that's from there. And then Membu, I think you take a guy from the outside and give him a shot. I like Austin's run on this. If he's available and I think we can get him to do that, I think that'd be a great pick.
So
Austin.
I did want to shout out Tyler Booker, who was teammates in high school with JJ McCarthy. So that is a connection. If JJ is going to be the
Yeah.
quarterback for the Vikings, I definitely think puts him up the draft board. Realistically, in this situation, there are so many names I'm happy with because as long as Membu's okay with moving inside, Zabel to me is a guard. He's a guard. He's going to be a great one. So Membu, Zabel, and Booker are all on the board for me. I agree with your thoughts on the corner out of ECU. And I would love to probably trade down here, but if we're gonna stick and
Right.
pick, I'm gonna take I'm probably going to take Membu. I'm going to assume he's willing to move inside. I really like his talent level. If he's willing to do that, I think he's a home run pick here.
I personally love it. I've got Membu being draftable by several teams, but in my head, it was mostly as a really good guard as
Yeah.
opposed to a what am I getting at tackle? Maybe good, maybe not. So that's where I'm
He
at. All right,
he
I
was
love
the
it.
one who, when I was kind of introing it, that I wasn't sure what we thought on him. And I think it'll take a while before we know
Right.
realistically what he's gonna be drafted as.
All right, let's go ahead and do it. Let's lock in Mimbo as our first round pick here for the Vikings. And again, the Vikings could very well trade down depending on how far it's possible to trade down and how many guys are still sitting there that the Vikings like. But Mimbo is the pick, and that's going to take us all the way down to the third round here. So give the computer just a second here to pull this out. Let me name some of the names that go right before we pick: Harold Fannin, tight end; Devin Neal, Kansas; Mason Taylor, LSU; Trey Harris, Eagles. Austin, I know you've already kind of got a quick peek at the board here, but with the third round pick, considering that we already went Mimbo, what are you kind of hoping without any specific player names to accomplish here with this pick?
This is when I start looking at running back just in case. I think that's kind of always worth having your eye on if you're the Vikings this year and just seeing if anybody falls a little bit to you or if
Okay.
there's a tier break maybe. And then I'm still looking at DB and defensive interior.
All right. Well, let me go through, just give the audience a glance at those. So, defensive back, give me a second here. I'll click on both safety and cornerback. This is who's still sitting there at those spots. And we'll roll back over. You said defensive interior, right?
Mhm.
This is who's sitting here at that particular spot. All right, Shane, take it away. What do you want to look at, and then give us the recommendation.
So I think, like Austin said, this would be where I would look for value over probably even filling a spot because I don't. None of the corners a little bit farther back really jump out me for what Austin has already said he's looking for. Like I don't see a real burner here that I trust in coverage skills. Um, I think there's more safety value here, but for the way the Vikings are and what they're probably going to re-sign, I don't see a glaring spot other than Cam Bynum's if things play out the way that we've played it. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if they looked somebody like RJ Harvey, running back out of UCF. I think there's some other running backs that could get a shout somewhere in that run. Um, but if that was me, I would make a probably a pick that we didn't necessarily want. But if I believed in my guy, I think he gives them a running style that would play well with them. UCF asks an awful lot of their backs, pass protection, catching the ball, moving around. I think he'd put himself as a well-rounded player for the Vikings.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to move around a little bit here. I'm just going to glance through what's sitting here at the top. Looking through, just give everybody kind of a glance at all the people sitting here, maybe the top 20 picks or so. That's about what we're seeing. Okay. I love the running back thing. If we go running back here, I'm all for it. Like that, would love that. Just for something different, I've got two guys. I'm going to pick one here. Deion Walker, defensive interior out of Kentucky. I like his potential. I know it's
It's
inconsistent.
a big man.
He is, and I get that his pad level, his he doesn't like to bend down and get dirty. He would rather play high and just power through everybody. Probably gonna, even though he's a heck of a guy, he's probably gonna struggle to do that at the NFL level consistently, right? So I would love to think that he could work down and be more of a hunch, but I do like the potential there. I love the size. I love the explosiveness when he gets through. So I like that. That would be one guy I was looking at, and then the other guy here, I'm gonna move over to safety. To be honest, some of the guys I thought would be here tonight are not. Okay, I had a short list, didn't quite fall the way I was hoping it would fall with two or three guys I really like. So I've got this Makuba here, safety out of Texas. I like him as well. Okay, not ideal. There was another guy I was hoping would be here. He's not here. But Makuba at Texas, good athlete, has performed. Again, he's like a bit of a fireball, which that in theory and spirit would fit the Vikings defense, but he's also a little bit sloppy. I do like Makuba coming out of Texas though as well here in this third round. I think ultimately though, I'm just going to go back to defensive tackle and pick Deion Walker out of Kentucky as my recommendation. But I like the running back thing too.
Yeah, if Devin Neal's on the board, he just went. I love Devin Neal. I'm gonna have a really stupid high grade on him. I think
Right.
when it's said and done, if he's on the board, I think I'm taking him and not really questioning it. None of the running backs left on the board really speak to me that much. Uh, Deion Walker's interesting with his size. What Brian Flores could potentially do with him, if he is willing to put in the work, would be next level. But ultimately, I think I'm gonna go Makuba here. I really, really like his athleticism, and I think if Harrison Smith is re-signed and Makuba can learn from Harrison Smith on kind of how to control himself and play within himself because that's something he
Yep.
played just like out of body. Like he was playing like in a third person like point of view. It felt like at times just completely lost out there, but he has the tools, and I think with the right guidance, he can be a really strong player to fill in as this secondary is aging out. So I'm actually going to pick Makuba here.
All right, let's go ahead and put that in here, and I'm going to roll it back here. The computer's going to move on here. Let's see where we've gotten here. I want to go all the way back up here, I think, to find yeah, here we go. Our picks. Okay, so here's what we've got. We've gotten Mimbo out of Missouri, Makuba out of Texas. I like this. I really do. I think this hits a couple of need spots, and we kind of worked with what we were handed. Now, I will say at both spots, I had guys that I thought could realistically fall to us that didn't at both spots. So I really do like this. I think we did the best we could with what we had, but I do think there are, in a thousand alternate universes, right? I feel like there are boards that could work out more in our favor here. Shane, final thought here on the work we put in tonight.
I mean, I like where Austin's head was. You know, he is the boss on this, but I think the reasons behind both of those picks and in the format that we have where you can't be a GM and call another team and say, hey, what are you thinking here? Can I maybe trade you this pick and then make a thing? I think the Vikings, if somebody like if Makuba in that third round, and then if they're not happy with what ends up out of the interior on the offense, they wouldn't be one that I'd be surprised if they didn't drop to the second and try to collect some picks.
Yeah.
I think the Vikings know that they have a little bit of a window, so now would be a time where you'd want to reload. But the two selections that I think were excellent. Like you said, there are some other guys I would have loved to have a shot at, but the way that the board played out, you didn't get an opportunity to put those guys to play.
All right. Austin, final thoughts on the board, man.
Yeah, the first round I loved all the options there. It was pretty thin though when it got to that third round pick, and I'm with Shane. If there are all those options there, I'm absolutely looking to drop back. Probably looking at like Buffalo at pick 30, to maybe pick 40. Like that pick 30 to pick 40 is where I'm looking to move back to, because I think you might miss out on those guys that I had named, but I do think there are some other players that are going to be valuable there. So yeah, ultimately, stick and pick. I like what we did, but always have to be open to movement.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I like what we did, Austin. I like what you did. All right, the finals of what you did. Okay, so I really like that. And double down on what y'all are saying. There's so many likable guys back at 30 to 40, even a little past 40, but especially 30 to 40. If the guys we really want aren't sitting there at 24, I am 1,000% happy to trade on back. Let's add a little bit more picks to kind of a shortfall year in the draft selection series, right? As far as how many picks we've got, and let's get somebody else that we like, maybe as good as whoever's sitting there at 24. It's kind of that close of a draft where some of these guys grade out very close. All right. Hope everybody enjoyed that. Real quick here, final 60 seconds for both guys. Shane, give us your final 60, man.
My final 60 goes to the NHL. and the Four Nations games. I think that's turned people on. I've always been a Kachuk brother fan. I think they have turned America on their side for the foreseeable future. Also, it goes to show I've never been a big all-star game guy because I think it's hard to take, some of that desire to win out of those games. So it always becomes either just an offensive onslaught or not. And I think having a chance to play some of these games, would I love more nations involved, maybe a mix and match on that. But like I no longer watch the NBA All-Star game because it's not really a basketball game anymore. And I think they've even gone a little bit too far away where you used to turn in for the NBA, All-Star weekend. You want to see the rookies, you want to see dunk contest has always been the big thing, and then you got to see three-point shootout. I think even that stuff has started to get, by the wayside. The NFL has decided they're not even going to play a real football game anymore. We're going to do dodgeball and flag football, and people love that more than they ever did watching, teams do nothing. So my hat's off. Like I said, I give it to the complete Four Nations, but Kachuk brothers, St. Louis loves you. The USA loves you. Congratulations, boys.
Listen, that hockey stuff, I assume everybody in the audience has seen it, but if you haven't seen it over the weekend, that was wild. Oh my gosh. You really don't, other than a championship match, you don't get much better TV than that. Goodness gracious. Okay. Austin, give us your final 60 seconds.
Yeah, I don't really have anything here. I echo and Shane stuff. That's kind of the same things I had lined up. That game was so fun to watch. Hockey is a sport that I wasn't familiar with growing up in Florida, or at least my part of Florida. Not down there like by the Lightning or anything. So was completely unfamiliar with it, but have since moving to Raleigh have become a big fan and have I've been adoring this Four Nations. Something I hadn't really heard of before this year, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it was lit. I mean, it was insane. Okay, quick note for those of you in our audience. A lot of you are not regulars because you kind of come and go depending on what topic we're into. Some of you aren't Vikings people. That's okay. In 2 weeks, March the 4th, we will not have an episode. It'll just skip a week and we'll be right back because some of you are regulars. I tell you, I really appreciate you hanging with us every week, no matter what we're covering. For the rest of you, hey, we'll hit some more stuff after that. Next week, Yusef Marshall, our old a broadcasting buddy is supposed to be with us, scheduled to be with us next week. We're going to be all Giants, okay? We're going to talk about Giants offense, Giants defense, and then we're going to do a Giants mock draft where Yusef will be the general manager and we'll have the power of making decisions. All right, everybody, thank you for hanging with us. Have a great one, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.